I returned to the boiler room along with Aunt Natsu and told everyone weekly that we hadn't found anything. We heard that Dr. Nanjo and George Aniki had carried Kanon-kun to the servant room. The servant room had a first aid kit and a sink, and could apparently function as a nurse's office. Kumasawa-san and Jessica had accompanied them. Stains from Kanon-kun's blood remained on the floor. Judging by the large amount of blood lost and the ruthless shape of the weapon that had fallen carelessly to the ground, I figured that Dr. Nanjo's treatment would probably end in vain. That weapon was doubtlessly the same type that had been stuck in Aunt Eva and Uncle Hideyoshi's foreheads. But wait, isn't the demonic design on the handle a little different? There seem to be some small differences in that part. Still, as far as the overall shape was concerned, the weapons were all of the same type. Though it had seemed brutal, we'd left the weapon stuck into Aunt Eva and Uncle Hideyoshi to preserve the crime scene. So this was the first time we were able to have a perfect view of the entire weapon. As we had expected, the weapon was not bladed like a knife, but shaped like an ice pick. Or rather, a thin steak. And it had a spiral-shaped pattern, sort of like a drill. It looked like something that might be driven into the hearts of human sacrifices in some demonic ritual. Including the handle, it was 25 centimeters long. Half of that was the steak-shaped part, which was stained with deep red blood. The length of the blood-stained part made it clear just how deeply it must have penetrated into Kanon-kun's chest. But Aunt Natsu and the rest didn't even look at the weapon, and instead stood in front of the incinerator, where the horrible stench was emanating from. They must have dragged it out. Dragged out that thing, which had been burning in the furnace. It was still smoldering and kept sending out dense waves of that awfully unpleasant smell. Genji-san and Maria stared down at it. Aunt Natsu probably couldn't stand to look directly at it. She kept shaking her head, her back to it. I thought nothing could surprise me after everything that's happened. But this is... I stood there for a while, moaning, with a rising urge to vomit. The true source of that unearthly stench was a scorched corpse that had been cooking inside the incinerator. The clothes, the surface of the body, and the hair were all hideously burnt. That grotesque corpse was in a state where not the face, nor the age, nor even the gender could be guessed at. But when I thought about it calmly, I realized that a corpse appearing at this time could only be one person. It was grandfather, who had disappeared that morning and whose whereabouts had been unknown.
おそらく親方様だと思います。
私も同感です。このようなお姿でお亡くなりになるとは。おいたわしや。
でもこの死体、本当にじいさまだって保証はあるんすか？こうも黒焦げじゃ性別さえも想像つかないってのに。
バトラ君、足をご覧なさい。
Aunt Natsu, with a handkerchief over her mouth and her eyes averted, pointed and told me to look at the burnt corpse's feet. Huh?
両足の指が6本あるのがお分かりになりませんか？
本当だ。
Just as Genji-san had said, there were 6 toes on each foot. Each individual toe had looked so normal in its line that I hadn't noticed.
親方様はお生まれの時から 両足の指がそれぞれ6本でした。そして故に親方様は後ろ宮家の再興を託されたのです。
後宮家には昔から生まれつき多子症の方が多かったそうです。多分遺伝的なものでしょう。
Polydactyly literally means many fingers. Because of a little mistake by God when the person is born, one of their toes or fingers splits into two, and the total number increases. But a big deal isn't usually made of polydactyly in the world at large. That's because it isn't a disease, just something people are born with. So, while they are still babies, at about the time they turn 1 year old, they can be taken to the hospital and given surgery to make them normal. Even a child with polydactyly can be treated before they become aware, so they might not even remember it themselves. By the way, it seems that there's a possibility for this to occur in 1 out of every 2,000 babies. So even though it's not usually seen, it isn't that rare at all. Speaking of which, I think Uncle Hideyoshi mentioned something to me long ago. Something about how even Toyotomi Hideyoshi, the man who unified Japan at the end of the Sengoku period, had 6 fingers on one hand. According to On Natsuhi, among the many Ushirome family heads, once most praised for the wisdom, all had polydactyly. Because of that, when grandfather was born, his relatives were all excited at the thought that he might become another wise leader. And when the leading relatives all died in the Great Kanto earthquake, it was apparently argued that grandfather should be the one to restore the family, because of the auspicious sign of his birth. If grandfather hadn't disliked his position as the head so much, this 6th toe probably would have been pretty lucky for him. Come to think of it, I've heard about some country where it's believed people with polydactyly should be treated as gods and revered. This is beside the point, but it's fairly common in mystery novels for a corpse to be burned to hide its identity. But I guess that in grandfather's case, just toasting him wouldn't be enough. And grandfather's body was not simply burned. It was just like Aunt Eva and Uncle Hideyoshi, and the thing that had been stabbed into Kanokun's chest. One of those demon's ice picks was stuck into his forehead.
指に当主の指輪がありません。
昨夜の手紙の通りということですか。お父様、さぞやご無念でしょう。
Natsuhi-san let her head droop and closed her eyes tightly. This room had also become a vital crime scene for us to hand over to the police. It was decided that we would leave grandfather's corpse here and lock the room, sealing it. It isn't clear when grandfather's corpse started burning in the incinerator. Since, according to Genji, the strength of the flames hadn't been that strong, the body must have started burning a long time ago. So that stench could slowly creep out of the furnace and fill the room bit by bit, eventually pouring out and climbing up the staircase. Putting aside whether he was rare or well done, grandfather had been brought out, killed and burned, even though he had started out locked away in the closed room created by his auto lock. There's probably no doubting this. However, according to Genji-san, the boiler room is usually locked. The possibility that someone outside our group had snuck in and committed a crime was overwhelmingly high. And there was also a good chance that this person was walking around with something like a master key. After all, the doors and windows throughout the mansion had been checked. But despite that, the culprit was able to strut around the mansion freely. Does this crime confirm that a 90th person exists? There's still that contradiction, since they're trying to tout their existence without ever showing themselves once. Along with Kiryu-san's chessboard theory, I've been using this contradiction to deny the existence of a 19th person. By spinning the chessboard around once more, the very fact that this crime makes it perfectly obvious that a 19th person exists means that the existence of the 19th person is even less plausible. As long as that 19th person doesn't show themselves in front of us, if the culprit could get grandfather out through the door sealed by the receipt, if they could kill Aunt Eva and Uncle Hideyoshi from the other side of a door sealed by a chain, then could they possibly go so far as to create a fictional 19th person through strange tricks and devices? If we still want to believe that the culprit is among the 18, then the list of suspects has grown very short. The four of us kids, Aunt Natsuhi, Genji-san, Kumasawa Bachan, and Dr. Nanjo. One of these people has to be the culprit. Wait, we can't be sure of that. Just a second ago, we started doubting whether the corpse here was actually grandfather's, right? Maybe we can think of the other bodies in the same way. For example, the first 6 all had their faces horribly smashed. Some of the bodies had kept enough of their faces for us to confirm who they were, but that old bastard, for example, had lost his entire face, as though the whole thing had been neatly peeled off. We only figured out which body was which by their clothes and surroundings. Did the culprit prepare a fake body beforehand and alter it to make it look like they've died, even though they were actually hiding somewhere after committing the crime? It may sound ridiculous, but it wouldn't be an impossible trick to pull off. It's too early to give in to this 19th person. No, this witch.
Maria ちゃん、それ以上しげしげと見てはなりません。さあ、バトラ君も。カノンの容体も気になりますし、いつまでもこのようなところにはいられません。戻りましょう。
Maria didn't go out with everyone else, but remained in the boiler room. The thing she was staring so fixedly at probably wasn't grandfather's body, but the demon's ice pick sticking out of his forehead. It was probably the sort of item that an enthusiast couldn't bear to ignore. I tapped her on the head.
おい、マリア。ベアトリーチェの目的は何なんだ？俺たち全員の命か？
ベアトリーチェはもうすぐ蘇るんだよ。その時、誰も生き残れはしない。
よくも笑えるもんだぜ。自分だけ蚊帳の外だと思ってるのか？どうして自分の身に危機が迫っていると感じない？どうして怯えない？
ベアトリーチェは約束してくれたもん。マリアは黄金郷へ連れて行ってもらえるんだよ。そこはね、しがらみも何もない全ての人たちがずっと一緒にいつまでも優しくし合っていける素敵な場所なんだよ。マリアは楽しみだよ。その時はもうすぐだもん。
Just what kind of person is Maria? I only know what Maria was like 6 years ago, when she was free. She was once pure and obedient, a good kid. This new Maria 6 years later, and the Maria I knew, didn't seem to fit together. Just who is she, this witch who calls herself Maria? To Maria, who obstinately believes in a witch, this series of unsolvable crimes is proof that a witch actually exists, Every time something occurs that would be difficult for a human, it becomes a little harder for the rest of us not to believe in Beatrice. It must be an intense pleasure for Maria to see her relatives, who once firmly denied the witch's existence, start acknowledging that witch's existence one by one. Is that why she's in high spirits?
マリア、もう一遍だけ聞く。どうせ答えは同じだろうが、もう一遍だけ聞く。お前は昨日バラ庭園で手紙をもらった。そいつは誰なんだ？
おお、だからベアトリーチェ。バトラがまだ信じない。おお。
Maria only repeated what she had already said. Maria met with the 19th person, the witch. Was that really a 19th person? Or did one of the 18 just get her to say that? All that's certain is that Maria has been with the rest of us constantly, has always had an alibi, and hasn't done anything suspicious. She's simply overjoyed at being made Beatrice's messenger, and certainly isn't the 19th person. Supposedly. That's right. I wonder what's written in the letter we picked up in Aunt Eva and Uncle Hideyoshi's room. Aunt Natsui should still have it with her.